Alrighty folks, want to welcome you back to another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. So, last week I had pretty much the offensive video. Put the disclaimer on there, the warning ahead of time. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Like I said, you're probably going to get a little offended, be a little upset with some of the things that come up. But this is the differences. This is going to be the second part. I think I'm going to have a third part. First one was the user, the weakest link of the computer chain. This one is the second part, the administrator. And basic definitions between the two is the user is the one running the applications, running the software, playing games, running the Word documents, running, whatever they're going to do on that system. The administrator is the person who forces the user to do certain things. Is the best definition I can give it to you as. The administrator has the rights to set up the system to do things a certain way. The administrator has the rights to say, you must have a password on your user account. You must use a complicated password. You must have a capital. You must have a number. You must have a special symbol. That is what the administrator side does. You put the policies and procedures and the rules on the system so that the user is forced to do best practices or forced to go higher than best practice or basic, or they can't go below average by not having a password. How often do they have to change their password? How often can they reuse their password? These are things that the administrator side can do. Administrators can do a lot on a system. They can tell you what and what you can't do on that system. So you could set it up so people can't go to YouTube. They can't go to Facebook. They can't go to adult sites. You can use certain security software where you can't go over sites that have certain swear words. Anything like Bitcoin or cyber currency or any of that kind of stuff. Because those are security policies and procedures. Those are things you don't want people involved in. If you're the user and the admin, those might be good things to set up for yourself so that you don't make the error or mistakes. Because now you eliminate that from being in front of you. It's not here. It's blocked. You can't go to certain malicious sites with certain protection software. Some software will warn you, hey, by the way, this is not a recommended site. This has been known to be malicious. Do you want to proceed? This goes back to that user thing, the user choice. And this is where the weakest link factor comes in, is the user choice. Because now the user thinks, yeah, I really need to go there. I want to go there. As the administrator side, and if you set that permission software up right, you can say, you are not allowed to go there, period. In a question. So these are the differences between the administrator and the user. Because the user actually has the choices. The administrator says, you don't have the choice, you do this. You force the outcome. So I wanted to go through and basically break that part down in a basic part and why you have an administrative account and user accounts. Because you don't want someone to get into your system because you use an admin account and you accidentally opened a link or something, and that person has access to control all of that. Because now I told you the admin has the right to say what you can and can't do. Now that person who got into your system takes over and decides you can't use that system. You can't do anything. He sets up a secondary account and locks you out and moves all the permissions over to another account. He's the admin. He can do those opportunities, those tasks. That's what the admin is there for. That's why you don't use an admin account. Making sure you have a password on all your accounts. How secure that password is. All these factors come into play. Mentioned on the last video, if you want to get into more detail on the security side, you can go on YouTube, you can go on other places and watch videos. But now, I'm not saying that's 100% safe, secure information. It's a good place to collect information. If someone tells you, go in your computer, put this JavaScript in, put it in this way to do this, I would really question that. Unless you know JavaScripting and you know scripting and you go, you know what, that does look like what I need to put in, or you know that's what you need to put in, would you be doing that? Because someone might tell you, hey, do this to do that. And again, this is kind of the user choice factor again. And as an administrator, you have some of those user choices. How do you want to do it? You can learn how to go in and change settings, and you can do certain things multiple ways. You don't have to use a JavaScript. You don't have to use a lot of these other things. There's some things you might have to do if you're doing it in a big business and deploying it on a bunch of computers. But I don't like doing that because I find I have issues doing that. You run a JavaScript out on 50 computers, and maybe it only takes on 30. And then all of a sudden you got people saying, hey, why am I getting this and getting that? Because the JavaScript didn't take for some reason. It lost communication, a firewall, something that went, nope, not accepting that. I like to go to every physical computer, do what I got to do, verify that that setting and everything is installed. Remote installation. I don't like that because I like to go and check. Okay, accounting. Is that application installed? Is that security software installed? Is it up to date? What version number? I go and physically, with eyes, go and check them. That's the way I like to do it. But if you're in a really, really big organization, you might have to do that because you don't have the time to go out and physically check them. Because you're uploading to 10,000 systems, 5,000 systems. So that's the administrative side. And a lot of these numbers are not like made up numbers, 5,000 computers. You're talking about big business. If you're a home user, small business, you're going, whoa, no way. Yeah, this is actually something that happens. Military, government, you're distributing out. Schools. A lot of these things have lots of systems. You're pushing out updates. You're pushing out security patches. You're pushing out firewall software updates. You're pushing out a lot of stuff. And pushing out is through the network. So, Windows updates is basically pushing out updates. But you have to accept it. But Windows tells you how many systems are out there that are actually doing Windows updates. There's a lot of computers. So, this is kind of the side of the administrator I wanted to cover. Don't know how much of the administrator I want to cover, but you can go online and do research and get deeper and deeper into the security. if you watch the user video, you'll understand a lot of the choices you can make as a user. As an administrator, you can lock down a lot of that. You can say, hey, I don't want anything rated R to show up. I don't want profanity to show up. I mentioned in one of the videos years and years ago with the firewall, we had fun with one of the friends that liked a certain group. If he sees this video, he's probably going to get mad because he knows who he is. And we blocked anything to do with his group. Keywords. Just to play with the software to see if it would actually function and work. It actually blocked emails, it blocked websites, it blocked text messages, it blocked anything that came in. And we're, oh, this really does work, because we didn't really use that feature. But it was kind of nice to actually see it work, and we were playing with it. Well, he didn't like it much, but, I thought it was kind of cool. Because that was my deeper dive into the actual security and firewall permissions. And that was not done on a hardware firewall. That was done on the software firewall in the computer itself. You have those options too if you have a hardware firewall, that it could block any of that type of stuff. So if you're streaming, I haven't really tried it, any of those type of things that go on, depending on how that firewall is configured, like again, you'll hear me tell you, I haven't tried this, I haven't done it. There's stuff still out there that I have not really attempted to do that is admin related. Been doing this job for a long time, been working on computers for a long time. There's no need for me to actually do that. But these might be some of these options that are out there for you. People that have kids, there's parental guards, parental software that go on phones, computers, TVs. There's parental ratings on TVs. There's all of these things. Those are considered the administrative duties or positions can do. When you go into the TV and it asks you for a PIN code, that PIN code is the same as the password to stop people from doing things to that device they shouldn't be doing. Only the authorized person or people are able to change those settings because of that PIN number. So that makes them the administrator of that device. So that administrator and user role is not only to things like computers nowadays. You got TVs and their settings and their streaming and all of that other stuff that has user rights and administrative rights. So I wanted to go through and bring that up. So knowing the difference between the administrative and the user rights and the roles. I brought up roles. What you put that user as. I know I mentioned there's a guest role that I have some computers set up with. And that has really no permissions. You can't even shut that system down. The way to shut that system down is you have to hit Control-Alt-Delete, get the bar, and it has the shutdown option to shut down. You cannot go to the start bar and hit shut down. It will not let you. I believe it won't even bring up that start bar at all. So I have the icons on the screen for what the users are going to be able to do. So they can't go on there and play with your settings. They can't go on there and change the graphics. They can't go in there and change the icons. They can't go in there and change anything. They have no permissions at all to change anything. You have users. Users have a profile that they can change backgrounds, change a lot of things. They can't change that in guest. As an admin, you will learn how to get to those settings in different ways. Mention JavaScripting and other program languages, and there's other Windows ways, control panel settings to get to some of these settings and change them. You can get to the same setting by changing it a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. So you don't necessarily have to use JavaScript. As an admin, you can actually set that computer to say you cannot run scripting on this computer. So no JavaScript, none of that type of languaging to do changes. That's helpful for hackers and other things that can't just run a JavaScript and try to get in and breach your system and do other things quick and easy. They have to go in the control panel, they have to go in and change things, they have to do a lot of things. As an admin, making sure you got your backups. There's a backup account you can use that gives that account more privileges for backups. Haven't really used that account, but it's there. There's a lot of accounts. If you get into Active Directory, then you get into a whole nother set of administration. Basically, all of those things I kind of brought up, or a security software that comes from a server, has a lot of those same options or more options. But the difference is instead of setting it up on this computer, is once I set that policy and procedure, it can affect multiple computers or all the computers on the domain. So you don't have to go to each one and keep setting those same settings. That's for kind of a bigger business, and that's the admin. Admin role can get more and more complicated. That's why this is a rabbit hole subject. Because now I'm covering simple home small businesses. Now I got into Active Directory, domain controllers. You get into cloud. Cloud web hosting. Well, can be home, can be small, can be huge businesses, could be corporates, could be government, could be anything. That's a subject that actually covers everything. Because you could go in and host a website locally or out on the cloud. Being the admin, knowing the rights, knowing your security, knowing your logins, knowing your passwords, knowing a lot of that stuff. And again, the other thing I brought up in the other video is security and privacy with your information. I know this is one thing that was brought up a lot in these training videos I've been watching, is Facebook, YouTube, all of this type of stuff where users are posting a lot of information out there in a public domain where anybody can pretty much see it. That people can gather information about you, about your organization, about people you work with by what's on Facebook. Oh, I had this retirement party for Jack. And it was me and Mark and Kevin and Susie and Bob. Well, guess what? They now know Mark, Susie, Bob, Kathy, Frank all work there at your company. So as an admin, you might want to consider not allowing a lot of that kind of information to be distributed and shared. Having a policy, a procedure, a rule about employees not posting that kind of information. It's kind of hard because that's kind of the standard out there that everybody's doing. But that is a security concern out there as an admin, as a user. So it's one of those things that I brought up in the other video and this video that I wanted to bring up. And that's basically going to be, again, mentioned in my third video because a lot of the stuff that I'm reading, researching, and seeing keeps going back to that. But where is the information out there like, hey, be aware, if you're not studying for your like Network Plus, Security Plus certification, you probably don't hear this. And the Security Plus, this is something that keeps coming up because this is an important security issue. A lot of this tech has gotten so advanced and so sophisticated, and AI coming in and all this other stuff coming on. It's kind of causing a big headache, especially if you're an administrator. If you're an administrator, you probably don't even care about this video. You're probably above it. You might be an administrator and something hits you right in the eye. Like, oh, wow, I didn't. Wait a minute. He is right here. I better look at what he just mentioned. I can tell you some of the research that I found did the same. Like, oh, wait a minute. I need to look at this. I might need to secure some more of this. Because I didn't realize all of this got into this really quick. It got into some big things. Stuff that I thought was somewhat secure and somewhat like, I didn't realize there's such a huge problem with this. And then when you really look at it, you go, oh, I kind of see why there's a problem. But until you get pinpointed to that, along with my last year, 2022 quiz, is another one of those that I found that I keep finding everywhere. So this is kind of the funny thing with the admin role. And now it's this specific thing this year, but it might be something over here next year. It's going to move from month to month, to year. Ransomware, spyware, worms, Trojan horses. What else is going on out there? All these emails with ransomware, false things. I took over your webcam. I saw what you were doing. I'll report you to, this is the IRS. You owe us money. Pay this fine. These things keep changing. Kidnapping scams is one of the ones that keeps coming up. These things vary. They change. And as an admin, it's kind of hard to stay with it. Because you have this concern that's going on currently right now that you're trying to remedy, you're trying to resolve, you're trying to make sure you're safe. But then the next thing you know, there's this other concern coming in. Well, now you hope you get this one secure so you can start taking care of this one. But knowing that one's coming up, hopefully you catch it before it actually gets to you. Before you get bit by it. So that's kind of the catch-22 of the administrative side. And by what I mean by catch up to it and get to it is by putting in your firewall procedures, putting in security procedures, notifying your users of it. The one thing that I kind of think is still funny is like the I love you virus that floats around in the email. If you open it, it gets into your email list, goes out to everybody you know, and then the next person opens it and it goes out to everybody in their list. This has been floating around for a long time. It's probably a well-known thing out there. Haven't seen any reports in it for probably 5 years or so. But when I was doing another business selling some stuff, got a phone call from my distributor saying, don't open any emails from us if you get it. Don't open them. Just delete them. We'll let you know. We'll call you back when we get this all resolved. Well, what happened? Oh, a guy in accounting opened up an I love you virus that he got from his wife. Okay, no problem. I moved on. Administrative side. Accounting opened an email from his wife stating, I love you. There's a lot of issues there as an administrative side that you might want to address. Number one, you have someone using a business email for personal use. That is kind of an issue. Opening up something and clicking a link from whoever it is another issue. Other issue is what policies, procedures, how did you remedy that issue? Was that system pulled right off the line when that person did it? How long did they take before they noticed this stuff was being distributed to everybody? I'm sure he opened that email, it went out to someone. Probably people in the organization went, why is this guy from accounting sending me this I love you thing? And that's probably how it got noticed. But how long did that sit and wait before the administration or whoever was notified of that? Maybe someone thought it was a joke, they just deleted it out. He's playing around, whatever. Until 2 or 3 people got together and said, hey, did you see that email from Mark from accounting? I don't even know. They didn't give me the name, but I'll just throw out a name. Mark from accounting. Oh, yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. And oh, yeah. And then they figure out 2 or 3 people got it. Oh, wait. We better tell so-and-so. How many days was that, or hours was that, before that got brought up? And that's the kind of the thing with the administrator, to know, have your virus scan, have things running, have protections running, because that might have been a week, might have been 5 days, could have been 2 hours, it could have been who knows how long before they actually got notified that something weird was going on. So that was kind of the thing I wanted to bring up as the administrative side, that you actually control a lot of that, what the user can actually do. So if you don't do anything on the administrative side, and you leave it all completely open on the user side, then I can't really say, well, it's the user's fault for doing that because you didn't actually block it or you didn't screen it. And as you being the user and the administrator, that might be a feature that helps you out, that you don't go, oops, and then there goes 5-6 hours of your day trying to remedy your oops. If you don't have the opportunity to make that choice or to make an improper choice, then you're better off. So that's where the administrative side comes involved. And sometimes you just can't block it because somebody needs that feature. So as the administrator, you want to try to you want to try to have a training program. You want to make sure there's something set up so that you can actually have a way that people are informed and don't fall into that error, mistake, trap, whatever you want to call it. So I think that will kind of wrap this one up, because that breaks down the two differences between the user who is actually making the choice on the computer, what program I want to open, Do I want to look at email? Do I want to open an email? Do I want to delete an email? To the administrative side, where you get the protective software on the email that stops all the junk email, or 90% of malicious email, spam email, whatever, so that that user doesn't have the choice to click on it and open it at all. You take that choice away and you force an action as the administrator. So, making sure what their password procedures are, what their password has to be. Does it have to be 10 characters long? Can it be 1 character long? Does it have to have a number? Does it have to have a special symbol? As the administrator, you can force these options on someone. As I tell people, hey, when you change your password, make sure you have a capital letter, a symbol, and a number. This is what I tell people. Now, is that really enforced on the server in? Depends on what organization it is. But that's really the best practice procedure. How many characters should it be? It should be really 12 to 15 characters long. If you tell people this and they start doing it, that makes it a lot easier for you as the administrator. Because now you have some of those people like, I don't want to do that. I just want to use this kind of password. Some of those people you can kind of let slip through until you get them to do it, or you can manually make them do it by setting the policy. And of course, that's on your organization and your administration structure and how strong a security you want. And again, of course, you have the bare minimum, you have basic, you have, best practice, and then you have advanced, like whole password phrases, like 40, 50 character long. Complex passwords that are not anything you can have. It's a 1 question mark, expresses symbol, a happy face symbol, a this, a A, a C, a K. Something that makes no sense is like the highest structure one there is. And of course, the longer it is, the more secure it is. So you have these kind of things you can kind of enforce, but you can also start getting people to do the best practice and the best policies by just telling them, hey, do this. Hey, do that. When you change your password, do this. Hey, when you do that. To advance them up over the minimum. Because maybe your system, you can't enforce a certain policy you want, because it might be either under or over where you want, but you can set out a policy in writing or verbal, telling people, hey, do this, because your policy is to do this, but now everybody else that you're working on, your supply chain, everybody else, they have their password structure. I'm hoping most of them are using that kind of a complex password structure where you have to capital, a symbol, and a number. And a lot of them are a capital, a lowercase, symbol, and number. So, wanted to specify that difference, that there's a capital and a lowercase. So it's not like you could just go capital B at 1, 2, 3, 4. Has to be a capital letter and a lowercase letter. And then your symbol, and then your numbers. Financial, a lot of those type of things. And then there's how long the password has to be. So if you're in an organization where you're logging into banking sites, you're logging into, let's say, background check sites, you're logging into a lot of other things that use those complex structures, it is a lot easier to just say, hey, follow that practice. So that way you're following the same practice across all your different platforms, it makes it a little, and of course you don't want to use the same password on all of those. You want to make sure the passwords are different. But to know, was this 8 character? Was this 12 character? Was it 15 character? I can't remember what password was what, because now you have 3 passwords in there and you can't remember which one was which. You're going to run into that problem, but to me, going the furthest you can and the highest you can on your security is always best. So sticking with minimum, basic, or going with some other third venue site, something else you logging into is here, and then you have your complex way up here, well, you're in between. That to me is a better practice for you to follow. Home business, small business, home users, this is also a good practice for you. Because if you're logging into your banking site using a complex password, but you're logging into your computer using password as your password, you might want to consider upping that, because you're the admin. Not knowing these type of things is what makes your password weak, making things not as secure as they need to be. But you did know, because your banking site, your credit card bill, your electric company all makes you do this practice. So this is what I wanted to bring out as the administrative side, because these are the best practices and there's the minimum. And following the best practice is really what you should really be doing. So I know I've gone on long enough with this, because this is now the admin side. And again, the admin side can actually force the user to follow these procedures and policies and best practices. Because you tell the system, you tell the Active Directory, you tell whatever controls your login procedures, this is what we need. This won't work. You have to be here. So you force the user to do that. So that's the best definition I can give you between the admin and user accounts. When you get into big business, it gets a lot more complicated on the admin side. But that's the general that I like to tell people when I help them with computers. Tell them, hey, you really need an admin account and you need a user account. I've said this on multiple videos, but I never did break these down. And why you want, I mentioned some little factors, but not really why you want the user account or multiple user accounts and your admin account. A lot of times you might want multiple admin accounts. Depending on the system, you have admin 1, admin 2. Because sometimes you have profile corruptions. And you really don't want to be able to stuck where you can't log in with your admin account because the profile got corrupted. Because then you gotta restore and wipe out the computer. And I've had program corruptions before, user corruptions. If it's coding, virus, whatever issues it were, we've had user ones, we've had admin ones. Funny one with admin ones is, if you're in the user account, it asks you for the admin login and password to install software and other things. Usually it would work. But you cannot actually physically log into the admin account to make a lot of changes. So you could still do admin changes in the system by being in a user account. And that is another factor I didn't touch on that's very important between user account, admin account. If you're in the system doing something and it comes up on your system, need admin credential, password, you need to question, what did you do? What did you open? Why did that come up? If you're on your email and all of a sudden that pops up, that's your biggest red flag. That's another key reason between user account, admin account. I know I mentioned that in other videos, but wanted to mention this one again because that is really your first warning. Something is running in your system that should not be running. To stop and pay attention. Look at what's going on. Because that's telling you something is trying to make changes or alter your system. Why? Unless you're installing a piece of software or doing an exact change, that should not come up. So let me wrap this one up because I think I covered a lot of the key basics for basic administration, home administration, small business administration. These are a lot of subjects, and it's the rabbit hole. If you, like I said, you want to get into network plus security type of stuff, you'll learn a lot more. There's a lot more out. This is basics info. But this is the basic info that I think you need to use, that need to know, that you run across on a daily basis. Maybe not even on a daily basis, because once you set the computer up, you have it set up for years. And this is where a lot of that information that I mentioned about Facebook, YouTube, what you post, you set that up, you put in your security passwords, and over years you post all this information that someone else can gather that information and crack your security. So, wanted to touch base on that, explain that, because that keeps coming up a lot in the little studies that I'm doing. And I'm like, you know what? I really need to touch base on that because it's obviously a bigger problem than I'm aware of, because it keeps coming up. So let me wrap this one up. Thank everybody for watching.